understands the oil money is not going to rest forever, so that he wants to create, use that surplus to create the foundation of more, technologically friendly country. So that's definitely a country also to look into. But the problem is, like with Latin America, is that because of the influence from the U.S. government, if somebody else gets into a position of power in any of these countries, the stability is gone.
Right.
So I want to do much more collaboration between countries that are like people that actually have the courage to change things in such a fundamental way and to share knowledge. And so I've been having this idea, and I'm recruiting people for something called a think tank for the blueprint of the future, where I want people, people like you, Roy, Veranda Shiva, that's been dealing with Monsanto and the seeds, Andy from the Yes Man, and just all sorts of thinkers to come together and on a regular basis to, actually draw up this plan. Both physically, and then we can do it, on Etherpad or whatever. But we need to, we all know what's wrong. And so we have a few visionaries in the world. And they actually come from a very similar tribe. You can map them out quite easily. And we have not been able to sort of put together a vision. Where the hell are we going? We know how the system is broken, but where are we going as humanity? And I think it is so important to start to see it so that we are going somewhere, because I feel we're going nowhere.
We're going backwards.
Yeah. So I'm hoping that I can somehow secure a small fund so that people can come. Like I can find the place in Iceland. We can maybe do it, in Ecuador or somewhere nice, and just have 4 days of brainstorm. I need to get somebody.
Come up with a declaration of some form.
Yeah, exactly. And beautiful to have people like Daniel Ellsberg and Barlow, he's visionary,
and
yeah. So just to have a really good think tank, and then make a decision where we're going to go from here. This is what we're going to do in the meantime. These are the people we need specifically to look into copyright laws, or these are the people that we need specifically to look into this platform and how we can actually push it forward much quicker with this elements of quickening that we have, because you don't only have to make a small decision to change things dramatically. Just like in Iceland, when the head of the Foreign Affairs Committee, the chairman, he said everything in these meetings used to be secret by default. Then we get a new person from the left Greens, and he says, why don't we have everything transparent by default? And if there is a need for secrecy, we'll discuss it. And then we realized, of course I did, that there was really nothing that needed to be secret.
Right.
But it was just one person with enough authority at a given point. Can you imagine the backlash if they want to go back into secret by default? It's so you only need sort of little things to sort of completely shift something. And these are the things I want to analyze but first we need to sort of just get a vision where we're going. We're going to be in 50 years. If that was the ideal world, how would we like it to be? And can we then just start to write legal packages like the Patriot Act, or
Right.
if you know what I mean? It's we need to be ahead of them, and that was the beautiful thing about IMI, is that we were actually ahead of them. And thus we managed to push the boundaries of what laws should look like in this field, and inspire others that then we had created this model. And that's what you're doing with the Internet Archives, is that you are creating an entirely new way of seeing how we preserve our history. And it's just so incredibly visionary, how you reach this point. It's just, it's mind-blowing.
But it's not a top-down thing. So I come from the bottom-up world. The three revolutions I've seen is the internet, open source software, and the World Wide Web.
Yeah.
And each one of those succeeded they're always under battles, right?
Yeah.
But they succeeded, and they succeeded in fairly different ways. And we're right now in the middle of the content wars. Who's going to own people's thoughts?
Right.
Who's going to own culture?
Mm-hmm.
And that's being played out right now. And it's being played out mostly by companies. Most governments are sort of, working for the companies.
Yeah.
And the people's interests are not
Just
very
in the
well.
face of Disney now, or the local Disney. You know what I mean? It's like, it's friendlier than governments. So.
Yes. So it's, but the idea of actually being able to chart some level of legislative agenda is always just seemed completely beyond what it is we could do. I mean, people in California just feel completely out of control because things are going on in Washington that are so far away from,
Right.
the mindset or even what we found to be successful. Even if you want to build companies,
Mm-hmm.
I mean, the federal government is against you.
Right.
They're just so taken by old incumbent companies' monopoly interests.
Right.
That it seemed quite out of possibility. But the idea of saying, wow, well, what if you actually had a sovereign state to go and try to make that place so it would be a desirable place to have jobs and industry and interesting things to happen and cultures would bloom. You could do actually amazing things. And Ecuador and Iceland would be fantastic. I think you'd get enormous interest. Please stay sovereign.
Yeah, we will. Like talking about books. So I was rereading Brave New World.
Yes.
And do you remember the island where, like, in the book they sent?
It's been a little while since I read.
Yeah. So everybody has forgotten this bit, so they sent the main character in the book to this island. Where they sent
they send the smart people there.
Yeah.
Because my son just read it. He said, "Oh, that's just like Brave New World. They sent the smart people someplace."
Yeah. So the name of the island in the book is Iceland. That's hilarious, isn't it? So I read it just after I had gotten in through the parliament. I was like, oh.
I think we do need a model.
Yeah.
And it's easier to experiment in a place that people don't, in general, the large corporations with large vested interests and antiquated business models don't find threatening.
Yeah, exactly.
And I think the idea of doing, there's such a fervent music industry. Bjork was here, filled for 3 nights. Did you see her performance? It was just last night. She's here.
Oh, really?
She's filled 2,000 people 3 nights in a row. That's pretty good.
Yeah.
And the movies coming out of Iceland. So I think Iceland is not as other
No.
from a lot of countries that have much more problems getting anything through.
Yeah.
And so if we can go and concentrate within Ecuador or Iceland, let's do some interesting things.
Yeah, absolutely. We have to. I mean, it's sort of just waiting for, like, this thing is just waiting for somebody to just start. Because just like with Emme, it was just the reason why it sort of worked out in the legislative.
Well, my offer is still open.
I know.
And Judith wanted me to talk a little bit about Aaron.
Yes.
Is that right?
I would love to talk about Aaron, yeah.
So Aaron was involved in Creative Commons back when sort of all of us were sort of pulling it together and making that whole approach work. And he was there when we made a bookmobile. Print on demand bookmobile. So
yeah, I remember that.
Bookmobile with a satellite dish and a printing press, printer and binder, and people made their own books. And we basically drove it across the country and made books in front of the Supreme Court when the Supreme Court was arguing of whether they should shrink the public domain, take things out of the public domain. And Aaron was there. And I think of Aaron as leading an open source life in a way that actually is only kind of now possible. And much more free in some sense than my life. He wasn't institutional. He wasn't a company man.
Right.
He tried to just get the right things to happen, and he knew different organizations would do different pieces. So he did several projects where we were part of it, and when we wanted to build an open library of books. He said, oh, I've got an idea. I've got this great technology I did for Reddit. And if it worked for Reddit, it can work in building a library.
Right.
And so we actually employed him for a while, and then he sort of drifted away. And I said, do you mind if we don't pay you anymore? He said, oh, no problem. And he continued to help, but he was sort of always off to sort of whatever the best use of his life was. Then he did a project to go and download the government documents, the court documents.
Right.
And this was with our friend Carl Malamud. And he went into a library and read the electronic database very fast, and this got him in trouble. So the FBI went and stalked out his house. But what happened to those documents is they went onto the Internet Archive, of course. So he's sort of part of our world. Then there's Google Books. Google was digitizing some of the great libraries of the world. And they had digitized the public domain. These are books that have no rights. They're so old. They have no rights, like Shakespeare and da-da-da-da. But Google was putting up, and the libraries put up walls around them. And it's the library's fault as well. The libraries would not allow you to go and download very many of these books. 1 or 2, okay. But 100? No. And they would stop you. And it was like, what is this about? So Aaron and a bunch of his friends went and started slowly downloading books from Google, from lots of different places, and then started uploading them to the Internet Archive. And he wasn't working for us then. We just saw all these books started coming in. It was like, what's going on? Where are these books coming from? Oh, it's Aaron. He's freeing the public domain again. And he wants the public domain to be publicly accessible. Which you sort of say, isn't it always? And the answer is no. A lot of the public domain is locked up by libraries, by archives, by governments, by corporations. And Aaron wanted to have it have the light of day. So we processed the books, we made optical character recognition so you could search them, you could download hundreds or thousands or tens of thousands or hundreds of thousands of these if you wanted to. And we always pointed back to Google and said, thank you, Google, for doing the digitization. And this came from Harvard or Stanford or some other library that locked things up. And it was just another of those times that Aaron was doing what Aaron does. And so when he went to MIT's libraries and went and started downloading journal articles, we don't know why, but I've never seen him go and make anything available that wasn't public domain publicly, but he'd done data mining research, which is the new way that research is done. It's what we actively encourage. Well, the nonprofit database company went and got so mad that they caused MIT to try to track down this person and stop them. And MIT did the unusual thing of calling the cops. MIT never called the cops when we were there. They did all sorts of things to protect us. And they called the cops, and then they handed it to the federal government. And Aaron, for making a computer program that read the library books too fast, was suddenly, for 2 years, being put into federal problems. Wow. And it went through hundreds of thousands of dollars, and he committed suicide a couple weeks before his trial date. And it's completely crushing, because he's one of us. He was one of the sort of the bright, young, next generation people doing what it is that should be done, and doing exactly what it is we encourage people to do. He was nailed for. And the outcry on the part of our community and the support, and it crossed over every line, and just it made it into popular mentality that there really is something more at stake with this technology than just being a Facebook stockholder or whatever. That there really is something big we're trying to achieve, and here is one of our bright young lights, and crushed too early.
I hate this could go on forever, and we'll have some more chance on Sunday. Sorry, the 10th.
But I don't want to do that again.
No, you don't have to do that. It's ours. But I would love to hear, like in one sentence, what's that got to do with what he was doing in Iceland? Is there a connection between what Aaron was trying to do and what he was trying to do?
Aaron understood the power of openness, of sharing of knowledge, of making information accessible. Nonprofit, for no money, that actually and help towards the greater goals of education, being fuller human beings. That's exactly what it is I see you're doing in Iceland in trying to establish the laws to make it so that we can have digital libraries without having people being prosecuted, persecuted, and in some senses forced to commit suicide. Do you know him?
No, I think I talked to him once on the phone or something. But
He's reclusive. I mean, he was really much more comfortable at a keyboard than he was in front of people. He's a very nervous young man.
He like Smart McCarthy, the executive director of it. Like he knew Aaron.
Oh, the guy with the ponytail, the young man with the ponytail.
He doesn't have a ponytail. No, I don't know if he did.
Oh,
he has like
big afro.
Yeah, he's like half Irish and half Icelandic.
Okay.
You met him. I
met a whole bunch of the guys.
He was the main guy, like, and has been, like, he is, he reminds me of Aaron, like, trying to have him as an executive director isn't possible because he's just drifting all over the world to do stuff that's important. He's been part of Fab Lab and Telecomix, and but also been sort of has this academical thinking. He's the sort of person that goes to sleep reading mathematics. And for me, sort of looking after these guys and girls, there are a few women also within this community, way too few, is so important so that they are not being attacked. Like, what, for example, Jeremy Hammond did, is exactly what this generation does. And the stuff that Barrett Brown was investigating. This is our generation, like, of the internet tribe, second generation. And they're being hammered with like 45%, 45 years in prison, 100 years in prison. It's just, it has to stop. And what Bradley Manning did as well. Yes. So for me, if there would be anything I could do to honor Aaron SWARTZ legacy, is to carry on with his work,
Yes.
That's the only way,
You are. And I think you're right. There's a generation that wants to believe that trust, that openness can work. Yeah. And they are taking more risks than they probably even know. But it's our job. We're the parliamentarians, the librarians, we run organizations. It's our job to protect these people and to give them a home and encouragement.
Exactly.
And with Aaron, we fell short.
I mean, and there's nothing we can do to undo the undoable. And it is important, like whenever you're faced with a tragedy like this, is to acknowledge the lesson and carry on with, it's so easy, like there are so many people that feel guilty about what happened with Aaron. And guilt is not going to sort of, and I'm just saying this off camera, because guilt is not going to get us anywhere,
No, but it has helped galvanize.
MIT finding, like, when is their report coming?
I don't know. How's a good guy, though. I'm hoping that he does. I knew him from then.
I mean, can you imagine how he feels? I mean, it's like there are some people that, are feeling really, really bad. And others that are feel, but I mean, there are other people at risk right now. That's the important thing. There are other people at risk. I mean, I worry about, I don't worry that much about Bradley Manning, to be honest. It seems like, every ordeal that he steps through just gets stronger and clearer. It's weird.
Yeah, they may have already achieved what they were after by putting him in solitary for so long.
Yeah.
So a story on WikiLeaks.
Right.
So the Internet Archive archives the World Wide Web.
Right.
That's what we do.
Including
WikiLeaks, including everything, and we do it on behalf of organizations that help us, such as the National Archives, the Library of Congress, the National Libraries. We work with all of these organizations to make so that there is a library at the end of the day. Every web page, the average life of a web page is about 100 days before it's either changed or taken down. But
Really?
if you don't actively archive the web, it goes away. So we crawled and archived whistleblowers,
Right.
which has got a long history of being positive characters in American life, and also WikiLeaks, as it was, years before. So we were archiving these things along, and so we have this collection, and it's available on the archive, and we've never had any problems with it. It's been completely great. There was a panel at the Association of American Libraries,
Right.
right after some of the big blow up and when the cable traffic came out. And there was a panel, I wasn't on the panel, of what should libraries do? And they went back and forth, well, you can't let your, if you're a federal employee, you may not be able to gain access to it, or, having access from your through your flyers. Anyway, it went on and on and on.
Wow.
And it was just, so when the questions came up, I put up my hand. I stood up and said, hi, I'm Brewster Kahle. I'm with the Internet Archive. We're archiving all of WikiLeaks and making it permanently available on the internet for free. And we got a standing ovation. I mean, I think it was very clear to everyone in that room what they thought was the right thing to happen in this realm. This is the literature of our time.
Exactly.
It's crucial towards understanding our time. That libraries have a role to play that is important and long-term historically understood. So you take any historian from study any point in time of human history, the role of libraries have borne out to be what we always have known them to be. And I don't think we've seen any real reason to shut down the idea of a library so that the next generation doesn't have the benefit that we had growing up.
That's brilliant. I mean, that is just, yeah.
We have to take your next generation to the Exploratorium, where it's going to be very
Oh, yes, yeah.
You're all fun. You're scheduled.
No, it's my son.
So you're going to come over to my house for dinner?
Yeah.
That'd be great.
Yeah.